They say February is the month of love, but I definitely didn't love all the books that I read. Hello everyone, my name is Holly and welcome to my February wrap-up where I talk about all the books that I read in February, or I tried to read anyways. Yes, January was a fantastic reading month for me, and old Holly would be like, man, I wish I would have done better. But you know what? I think I did pretty well, considering the shitty neighbor that I have, who plays loud music all day, every morning, every night, and I can't concentrate for the life of me to read. Anyways, I have more DNFs this month than January. I have 2 books here that I couldn't finish, and we will talk about those last because I desperately want to talk about the amazing books that I did finish. So let's get started with the first one, and that is The Tainted Cup. You're probably going to be seeing a lot of reviews for this one. It is very popular. It is by Robert Jackson Bennett, who snagged me yet again with another amazing start to a new series. Wow, this one was so good and yet so weird. As I'm reading a book these days, I normally keep notes. I normally keep my phone next to me, which I know is a very dangerous thing because you can just bring up Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, whatever. But I am very diligent and disciplined, and I keep notes in my phone as I'm reading. But I barely kept notes for this one because I was turning the pages too quickly and I didn't want to stop reading. Plus, it was kind of complicated, but in a good way and fascinating way. Trust me, I love me a grand adventure type fantasy, but there's also something about a whodunit type mystery set within a fantasy setting that is so fun to me, like the Justice of Kings, for example. So for The Tainted Cup, imagine Sherlock Holmes in the world of a more fantastical Attack on Titan. I know. So this takes place in a city with inner and outer rings. So the outer rings are the most dangerous place to be, or to live, because there's giant leviathans that the Empire has to fight back with ballistas, or else they'll break through the wall and eat everyone. Does that sound familiar? There were so many paragraphs that I highlighted where I was like, that was an Attack on Titan. This was also an Attack on Titan. The similarities are insane. So this story begins with this giant mansion where a man is found dead with a tree sprouting from his body, and it just branches off from there. See what I did there? That's all I'm going to say for this one. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. The only reason it's not a perfect 5-star read was because the long investigative info dumps, they started to get a little bit much for me later on. I was super into them at first and I read every detail, but there are so many and it eventually just got a bit tiring to read so many times. And one of the main characters I found to be super OP. There's obviously more to her character that we don't know that we'll probably find out about in book 2, but yeah, no one has a chance with her around. She's like the detective version of Superman, just unbeatable. The next book that I read was a continuation to a series, actually the finale, and that was The Trials of Empire, book 3 in the Empire of the Wolf trilogy. Ah man, I remember in the good old days when I was a youngin' when book 1 was being announced and how pumped I was, and now I'm reviewing the final book. Crazy how time works. So for finales, you never know how they're going to go, but this was just one big whirlwind till the very end, and what a brilliant end it was. The first 2 books had a smattering of magic and supernatural events and murder, but the conclusion here was full throttle as it should be. The strength of the enemy is stronger than ever. The Empire is in decline, and we see Helena and Vonvolt, their characters shine even more. This is the finale, so I don't want to talk about it for too long. Even saying if the ending was wrapped up nicely or not is a spoiler in my opinion. So it was amazing. I of course gave this 5 out of 5 stars, as it deserves nothing less, and I cannot wait to read what Richard Swan is writing next. I will be in line, man, for that next book. Okay, moving on, let's go ahead and talk about the final book that I enjoyed before moving on to the ones that I didn't, and that was The Lost War. So yes, I finished a total of 3 books in February, which you would think, oh man, that's not very much. But if you saw the page count, these 2 books, these things are huge. And The Tainted Cup was over 400 pages? I don't know, I don't have a physical copy of that one, but they're all chonkers, and I'm still proud of myself for reading 3 nearly 500-page books. Anyways, off topic. I'm so glad that I finally decided to pick this one up and that I finally have an accurate book that I can compare to Dragon Age, the video game, by the way, specifically the Darkspawn from Dragon Age. So let me give you some details. This is a really unique fantasy because where most fantasy, the story is building up to a big war, this one takes place after the big war has already happened, and we're seeing the aftermath and the effects of it. I'm going to be honest, I love fantasy that do that. I love seeing the aftermath of some big epic war that happened and maybe they lost and what happens after that, because normally fantasy end. Like, that's the ending point of fantasy series, but it's the beginning here. And the magic system here is so cool because only a select few people can have magic, and there's like a variety of abilities someone can have, like our antagonist who can summon and control demons basically, which again reminded me so much of Dragon Age. So there are demons that roam the lands. There are zombies, in quotation marks here, that are called the Blackened that our characters have to worry about. We have a main character who gathers a ragtag motley crew that contains various people who all bring something unique to the table. And though we have, I guess you can say, an ordinary fantasy, the ending is far from it and absolutely wild, and I did not see it coming. I'm so glad that I have the sequel on hand, which I'll be reading in March, by the way. It actually might be the very first book that I read because I want to continue so badly. And yeah, I didn't see the ending coming from a mile away. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars, maybe a 4.5. I don't know. I loved it. It wasn't perfect, but man, I enjoyed the heck out of this. You know what this reminds me of, actually? There are authors out there who complain when readers give them 4 out of 5 stars, when I'm going to let you know 4 stars could actually be favorites for me. So any authors out there who are like, ew, why would you give my book 4 out of 5 stars? That's too low. Dude, I have favorite 4-star books. That's how my ratings work. Even though this is a 4 out of 5, it's going on the favorite shelf. Okay, so we're moving on to the 2 DNFs that I had in February, and also my current read, which I will share with you as well. So the first book that I DNF'd was Your Shadow Half Remains. Nothing got me more excited than seeing a book being promoted as The Last of Us meets Bird Box. But no, that is a lie. Okay, actually, I can see Bird Box for sure because the whole concept is very similar. Where in Bird Box, if you looked outside, you would die. In this world, you can't make any sort of eye contact with anybody. You can't even look at a reflection of yourself without risking turning violent, which sounded so freaking cool. So we're reading from the perspective of a young woman living alone in a cabin in the woods. Society has pretty much collapsed, except you can still like order stuff online, apparently, like food. I think the world is still kind of being controlled by robots, I think. Anyway, suddenly another woman shows up at the cabin and, you know, things go awry. There might be some like stalker vibes happening. I don't know. All of this sounds really interesting, but it still did not read like a survival story. And maybe I shouldn't have gone into it like that, but when you're comparing a book to The Last of Us, which is oh so survival, that's what I'm going to expect. Maybe the publishers did this author dirty by comparing it to those two things. Anyways, there wasn't even anything scary about it. It's like a deep dive into the mental state of our characters as she compares how the sunlight hitting the leaves is similar to the feeling of being alone. Basically, this book said a lot and nothing at the same time. In fact, the narrative almost reads like slam poetry, and damn it, I just wanted a cool survival horror story, but you don't get that at all. It's like Flowery prowls to the extreme about her mental state, which would have been fine, but I didn't realize that going in. I actually haven't had a book annoy me like this in a really long time, but this did. I hope the author never sees this review. But yeah, this really annoyed me. I think I got to page 80 before calling it quits, but yeah, it was just very disappointing. And the next book that I DNF'd, oh man, I'm really disappointed in myself for not enjoying this one. The Dead Cattails Assassins. I know this one is very hyped up. It's very highly anticipated by many. I started this about a week into February, read it here and there for a few days. I think I got about halfway through it, and then I suddenly found myself forgetting about it until the end of the month. Well, not really forgetting about it. Like, I knew it was there. I knew it was in the back of my brain. Like, oh, I'm in the middle of that book. I should probably read it. I didn't want to. I think it's pretty telling. After a couple weeks, I just wasn't going to continue. There's many things about this book that is so cool. I mean, who doesn't want to read about a middle-aged, actually, I think she's like 60 or 70, if I did my math right. Like, you get some info in the book, like some amount of years. I'm pretty sure she's 70. So like a 60, 70-year-old assassin who is technically dead and breaks her super duper mandatory assassin's vow and saves a pretty girl. Like, I want to read that. But unfortunately, this did not hold my attention. The old woman wisdom that I wanted wasn't there, as she just acts and speaks like a normal 20-year-old, and that like threw off the whole book for me. I'm sure many will like this, but I just didn't, unfortunately. Okay, let's move on to my current read. So I am in the middle of a book right now, The Honey Witch. My copy is upstairs. I read before bed and I always forget to grab my book and bring it down here for the day. Anyways, The Honey Witch. I'm a decent chunk of the way through it. It is a romance, so the DNF potential is really strong, but I'm still reading it, so that's a good sign. It is written very well so far, and it is very cozy and warm, which I feel like I need right now. And to my surprise, I'm actually really enjoying it so far. So my review for that will be in my March wrap-up video, or you can follow me on Goodreads where you'll see my rating first. All right, so that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed my quick reviews of the books that I read in February. Let me know what you read and give me your rating, because I would love to know. Did you DNF a book in February? Give me the tea. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with a friend. It always really helps me out. Tell them how cool Holly Hearts Books is and how they are missing out on the coolest content ever, and they need to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and until we meet again, happy reading.